Alright, in this lecture we are going to load some data into our SQLite database, and in total we will create 4 tables, all coming from a small subset of our movies dataset. So let's again have a look at our current working directory, and here we have the JSON file some movies containing 18 movies. And before we can open and import the data from the JSON file, so we should import pandas, JSON, and also SQLite 3. Then we open the JSON file and we store the data on the variable data. So here we have in total 18 movies, and then we can create a pandas data frame and already a flattened data frame with pd.json normalize. So this is actually nothing new, and we save the data frame in the variable df. So here we have 18 movies with the attributes adult, budget, genre, and here on the right hand side the flattened belongs to collection attributes like backdrop path or collection name. Now let's create a data frame with the most important features like ID, title, revenue, budget, belongs to collection, the name, and the release date, and we save the data frame in the variable movies. So these are the most important and actually the main or the major features. And this could be one table, so to say, the main or major table that we are going to load into our database. And we can also further inspect here. So we have one problem here in the release date column, so the data type should be datetime. And also it might be more convenient to have revenue and budget in terms of $1 million US. So let's again inspect here. Next, let's create a second data frame. And this data frame should contain information about votes and ratings. So we have actually 2 columns. So we have the vote count and the vote average. And we should also store the movie ID in this data frame. So let's create the data frame votes. And here we have vote count and vote average for all movies. And actually with having the movie ID in both tables or on both data frames, we can link both data frames, so that's important here. We've already seen that we have nested data in the genre column, and we can actually convert the genre column into one separate data frame with pd.json normalize. So we go here into the genre, and also here we have to make sure that we can link the new genre data frame or table with our main table. So we also pass here ID to get the movie ID. And let's have a look here. So here we have for each and every movie the genres. And for instance, for the very first movie, we have adventure, science fiction, and action. And the same we can also do for the production company column. So here we have nested data. And we can create a separate data frame with pd.json normalize, and also here we make sure that we have a link to the main table by getting here the ID. So let's create here the separate production company data frame prod. And for instance, here we can see that for the very first movie, so it's the Avengers, the production company, we have only one company, Marvel Studios. Then for the next movie, we have 4 companies and so on. Now we have splitted our movies data frame into 4 data frames or tables. And now we want to store each and every table in our database movies.db. And first of all, we have to create a connection. And this is nothing new, so we can do this with the connect method and pass the file name movies.db. And still we have in our working directory here the database file movies.db. So let's create the connection. And now let's load our first data frame movies into our database. And this is pretty straightforward. So we can do this with the method toSQL. And inside the parentheses, we have to define the table name, and this could be movies. And also we have to pass our connection object. And we can also say that we want to drop the range index. So let's go back to our movies data frame. And here we can see that we have a range index, and we shouldn't store the range index here in our database. So let's run the cell here, and the same we can also do for the data frames, votes, genres, and production companies. And now let's get some meta information on our data frame with select all from SQLite master. And here we can see, so we created the table movies, and here we have some additional information on the columns. So we have the title column, which has text data. Then we have the revenue column, the budget column with actually numerical data, and so on. Then we have created the table votes and the table genre and production. And finally, we can also only get the names of the tables in our database. So we select the table names with the following SQL query. So you don't have to memorize this here. And actually in the next lectures, we will go to some very basic SQL queries. And here we can see that we have the tables genre, movies, production, companies, and votes. And we can also have a look at our working directory here. So now we have here the movies database file with a memory usage of 20.5 kilobytes. And finally, once we have finished our session, we should always close the connection. And with this, we reached the end of this video. And in the next lecture, we are going the opposite way. So we will load the data from our database into a pandas data frame. So thanks for watching, and see you there. Bye. In this lecture, we are going to load our tables from the SQLite database into pandas. And this is almost as easy as loading data from CSV or Excel files into pandas. And instead of using pd.readcsv or pd.readexcel, we have to use, surprise, pd.readsql. But first of all, we have to import pandas and also SQLite 3. And then again, we create a connection to our movies database. And again, we check some meta information. So still we have created and stored our 4 tables in the database. And now let's load the full movies table into a pandas data frame. And we can do this with pd.readsql. And let's have a look here inside. And actually, the most important parameter is SQL. And here we have to pass an SQL query as a string. And probably the easiest and most simple SQL query is selecting all columns from the table movies. And actually there's a second important parameter, it's con. So we have to pass the connection object. And now let's simply run the cell here. And this looks like our movies data frame or movies table. And we can also further inspect with the info method. And again, here we can see that we have some problems in the release date column. So the data type should be date time. And also in pd.readsql, we have the parameter pass dates. And here we can pass the column where we suspect date information. So here the release date column. And we can also define an index in our new data frame. So we can define a column, and here in this example, we select the ID column. So essentially here in the readSQL method, we have many parameters that we can also find in readCSV or readExcel. So let's again import the table movies and actually all columns. And then we save the data frame in df. And let's have a look at df. So now we have here in the index the movie ID. And let's also inspect here with info. And now we have here the correct data type, datetime 64. And the same we can also do for the genres table. So we select all columns from genres, and also here we pass our connection object. And again, we want to have the ID and the index. And we save the imported data frame in the variable genre. And here we have the genre data frame. So loading tables from databases into pandas data frames is pretty easy and straightforward. And with this, we have reached the end of this video. And last but not least, of course, we have to close the connection. And I'll see you also in the next lecture. Bye.